Hey there, Danny here. Welcome to my ramblings. So when I started on my journey in 2020, I got back to Arizona and I was looking for a job and I was door dashing part-time until I found one. Then they did the lockdowns, and in the lockdowns nobody was hiring, so I started doing DoorDash full-time. And it was like a ghost town. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. It's a large city. At the time, I think it was the 5th largest city in the country. And I remember talking to my mother and telling her, Mom, I can't imagine the amount of homeless people that are here. No, I DoorDashed in, well, back then it was a nicer neighborhood. And the thing was my thing came down to when I was driving around, you saw police, people going back and forth to work, and a lot of us DoorDashers were out there, us delivery drivers, whatever app you worked for. And they weren't putting the homeless people in shelters because of the COVID. So they were housing them here in this city at motels and hotels around the freeway system. And so where I DoorDashed is a nicer area, and all these homeless people were there. And I would see them everywhere. And there were so many of them. And I remember telling my mother, I want to do something to help them. I don't care how they got there. That's not my business. And that's not your business either. And I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And I was living at the time down by 43rd Avenue and Thunderbird in an apartment that I had gotten. And the homeless people were everywhere. I'd go to the gas station to get gas in the morning before I'd head out to work and throughout my day. And so I used to carry, because it's really hot here in the summer, I used to carry 6 to 8 gallons of water in the trunk of my car. And if I saw a homeless person, I would pull over and give them a gallon of water. And I had a rule for myself that if I made any cash tips, that I always gave it to a homeless person. So if I was given a $20 bill, I would go buy a pack of gum with it. And then the rest of the money, I would give a little bit here and there for the homeless people. I'd give them money as I went by at the stoplights. And then one night I was home, and I had started my dishes and they were soaking in the sink, and I went back to the bedroom because my old dog Myron, I had the mattress on the floor because he's fat and old and can't get up on a bed. So I just had the mattress on the floor so he could get up and down as he pleased. And he liked sitting in the bed. After I got home from work, I could only be up for maybe an hour before he wanted to go to bed. I didn't have to go to bed. We just all had to be in the bedroom together. So I went back to the bedroom and I was watching something and I was about ready to go to sleep, and then I was like, oh crap, I forgot I got the dishes. So I went in to do the dishes, and the window above the sink went out to my patio. And I'm doing the dishes, not thinking nothing of it, just minding my business in my apartment, and all of a sudden I realized there's a guy on my patio. I don't know if he's messing with the patio door, which I can't see where I'm standing from or what, but I see him take off. So I grab my phone, my shoes, and my keys, and I fly out the front door, which was at the other side of the apartment. And I go outside and I can see this guy come up. And I'm calling the police at this point because I don't know what he was doing. And I was kind of scared. It was just me by myself. And the police get there. While I'm on the phone with dispatch, some younger girl comes walking up to me and asks if she can borrow my electricity. And I'm like, no, I can't lend you electricity. I didn't quite understand what was going on. The dispatch goes, did she just ask if she could borrow your electricity? And I said, yes. She goes, you told her no, right? I said, yeah, I don't even know how you borrow electricity. She goes, I don't either. She says, the police are en route. And this girl left. The guy had taken off across the street. I was right across from ASU West. And the cops get there. And the officer asks if he can go check out the patio, and I said, yes. Do you want to go through the apartment? I said, because I do have dogs. I said, if you don't want to go through the apartment, we can walk around the building and we can go look at it that way. He goes, okay. So we walked around the building. And then he says, to me, because my pit bull, Mira, my scaredy cat, big chicken at that point. Now she's not so bad, but back then she was a scaredy cat. He goes, is that your dog? And I said, yes. He goes, next time you go outside, don't go out without her. What's wrong with you? He wasn't breaking into my apartment. While we were standing there, the officer and I, there was another girl that was sitting by my neighbors, because there was a wall that divided my patio and his patio, and he was a young 18, 19-year-old. He attended ASU West. Nice kid. I knew he was out of town because it was over the holidays, and I knew he was out of town. He had told me, because he would let me know when he would go see his grandma, so I could keep an eye on everything, make sure nobody was supposed to be there. And I knew nobody was supposed to be there. All of a sudden I heard somebody over there, and I look over and I'm like, what are you doing there? She's like, oh, this is my friend. I said, that's not your friend. I said, he's not even there. And the cop questioned her on stuff. So what we came to conclude was they give out cell phones to homeless people. Well, how do they charge them? Well, they were sitting outside on my patio thinking that I was in bed, and they were hooking up to my electricity to charge their cell phones. Whatever. That wasn't the issue. But at that point, I started to think, okay, and I said to my mom, I said, maybe I should work my butt off and pick up some old pickup truck and get a generator or two and start a YouTube channel and get people to donate money and stuff, and I can pick up non-perishable food and water and things like that, and have the generators, and I can set these locations where me or a friend or somebody else could be sitting there, and the homeless people could come get water and some non-perishable food and charge their cell phones, was my thought process. And I thought, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to do that. That's going to be a lot of money. But this was where my goal was initially. And I still had the rule, I still had the water in my car. I always made sure that I had gallons of water in the car. I mean, they weren't cold, but warm water, room temperature water actually absorbs into your body better. So whatever, it was still enough to hydrate them. And standing out in that sun here in the summer in 110 degree weather in that direct sun dehydrates you pretty quickly. So I was still doing the money thing. If anybody gave me cash, I automatically, it went to the homeless. I never kept it. And so as time progressed with all of this, my mother ended up getting sick. And I went back to Wisconsin to take care of her. I DoorDashed back there. I didn't see nearly as many homeless people there, but I did here. And I get it, because back there you have the winters and they're brutal. You really wouldn't be able to survive very well in the winters. Here, even though the summers are brutal, at least here in the winters they can survive. And they kind of have their own. They kind of have their own community. Now, not all homeless people are bad. If you watch videos on YouTube and everything else, there's several of the different YouTubers that will go ahead and give money to the homeless, and then they'll follow them around and find out that they bought things to help other homeless people with. So my rule of thumb, and I've been like this my whole life, my kids can attest to this for you. If I have it and somebody else needs it, it doesn't matter where my financial situation is. If somebody needs it and I have it, I have an obligation to humankind to give it to them. And this is just how I've always done it, ever since the kids were little. I took my son, my youngest son, Devin, I took him shopping years ago. We went on a shopping spree one day, and we saw this homeless guy pushing a shopping cart with everything he owned. And so we went ahead and we went to the gas station, and I bought one of those styrofoam coolers and ice and juices and waters and soda and whatever else, and filled it. And we went to go back but we didn't find the one guy that we were going back for. So we ended up finding this other guy that was walking down the street, and my son got out and handed him the cooler and said, "Oh, hey, here you go." He was like, "Are you serious?" And we're like, yeah, it's all good, it's for you. And he was ever so grateful, which we didn't really care about that. We were doing our good deed. And so I have always been, and there have been times where Thanksgiving and Christmas really break my heart. So if I go to the gas station after Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner and I see a homeless person there, because I'm going there to get cigarettes or whatever I'm going there for, I see a homeless person there, it breaks my heart that on a holiday they have to be sitting out there by themselves. So we always had leftovers, so I would make up a couple of plates, and I would make sure that the person was are you going to be here for a little while? And they'd be like, yeah, I'm here for a while. Why? Well, I've got all this excess food, I'll make you up a plate or two and bring it to you. And if they had a dog, I would bring them dog food, and I would bring them a pitcher of a gallon of water and then a little bowl that they could use for the dog. And so this was just the things I did. I didn't have a lot to give. I still don't. But in my heart and the way that I was raised, is that you give to the less fortunate, people that don't have what you have. If you have it and they need it, then it's kind of your human obligation to help take care of humans. I'm Native American, well, part Native American, and my original people didn't look at a man for his value based off of what he had. So if you were a man who didn't have a blanket or a place to stay, the Indians, they would give you a blanket and they would give you a place to stay. They would help you. You were to give back to your fellow man. So, and then everything I learned in the Seventh-day Adventist Church was, you give to others, and God will provide. So I've 100% firmly believed that my whole adult life. So as time progressed, I couldn't figure out, and I've had a lot of struggles, especially in the past few years. But I still have a roof over my head. I still have a soft place to land if I need to. And I'm ever so grateful and appreciative of that. But I still always had this urge to help them. And a lot of people look down on them. And it really breaks my heart to see them standing there with signs and people just drive past them. They don't acknowledge them. I'm not saying that all homeless people are good, because they're not. Why they're there is none of my business or your business. But if you have the means to help them, then that's kind of your obligation. Once that money, or even if you just stop to get food and give them a meal, once that leaves your hands, God's going to repay you for it. He's going to give you what you need. He's going to take care of you because you just took care of one of his children. And that's what it means by what goes around comes around. That's what it means by karma. It's not bad like everybody wants to believe. Our society has turned karma and what goes around comes around into a negative thing, when it doesn't need to be a negative thing. The truth is, if God will provide, if you help provide, he will give you good karma because you did good karma. That's the whole rule of it, and our society has changed it to be something awful, and we make comments that, oh, what goes around comes around. So if somebody does you bad, they're going to get bad done unto them. One, why would you wish that on somebody else? You know what pain and sorrow and tough times are. Why would you wish that upon somebody else, even if they did you wrong? You're supposed to pray for them and move along. God has you. So I'm going to put it out there that next time you see a homeless person and you have something that they don't have, give them some of it. It'll warm your heart. You will never see videos on my channel ever of me with a homeless person and giving anything or anything else, because I'm not going to exploit their situation. I do know that when you're talking about addicts and everything else, that some of them, you know, us helping them isn't helping them get out of the situation, because they can't hit rock bottom if we're helping them. The whole thing for me though is, I don't care. I'm not going to focus on those ones. I'm going to help the ones that I can help. And some of these people do have places to go. They're just too ashamed. Can you imagine? Just put yourself in their shoes for 5 minutes. Can you imagine standing at that stoplight with a sign that says, hungry, please help, or homeless, please help? And imagine all those cars, and you know all those people are looking at you, and you know that they're judging you. Can you imagine the shame that they must feel? And they shouldn't. They shouldn't. They should be able to ask us to help them, and we should do it willingly, because that's what human nature is. We're supposed to help one another. But our country's become so greedy. It's so about the Joneses. It's so about how we look to everybody else. Your material possessions can be taken from you, and they mean nothing. I embraced the minimalist lifestyle a long time ago, and I still live it. I've never been happier. I don't do a lot of shopping. If I need something, I buy it. Otherwise, I really don't buy it. When my clothes are starting to get old and I need new ones, I either buy extremely cheap ones from the stores, or I'm actually very famous for going to the Goodwill and Savers and all of that and buying clothes. And even when I worked in a law firm, most of my clothes for work came from Goodwill or Savers. And people would be like, oh my God, I love that shirt. And I'd be like, $3.99 at Goodwill. And I took pride in that. But anyways, my point is we have been inundated with keeping up with the Joneses, that we've forgotten that we're supposed to take care of each other, and that we're supposed to live from the heart, not the mind. And the devil can't touch your heart. He can your mind though. And you have to maintain control over your mind and your feelings and your anger and everything else. And you have to live from the heart. And part of living from the heart is, if I have it and they need it, I have to give it. And it's not about what they're going to do with it. What they're going to do with it is going to be whatever God wants them to do. And if they choose to do not the good with it, then that's on them, not on you. And I think we look at it wrong in this country. And if you look at all these homeless encampments and everything, and how crazy rent and mortgage have gotten out here, all of these homeless people are not addicts. Not all of them are what you want to perceive as the bottom of the barrel people, the ones that you think are beneath you. The truth is, they're not beneath you. They're still a human being. They're living and breathing, and it's not your decision to decide what they need and what they don't need. You are supposed to, as a good Christian, you are supposed to give to the people that have less than you. That's what you're supposed to do, and you're not supposed to judge. Because if you don't do those two things, you're not living the word. You're not living by God's standards. And I remember a time, and I think I told you in one of the videos, so I was going to work the one day, and there was a gentleman sitting at the turn-in to one of the gas stations. I mean, he was in a minivan, and he was sitting on the back, and he had his face in his hands, and he had a sign that said, can you please help with gas? And I went and filled my tank. Cost me like, I don't know, $30. And I went to the gas station, got my stuff, and when I came out, he was still sitting there. So I walked over there, and I said, excuse me. Well, I moved my car out of the way so it wasn't in front of the pump. And I walked over there, and I said, excuse me, do you have enough gas to get to the pump? And he says, I do. I said, well, why don't you pull up to the pump? I said, and I'll meet you there and then I'll fill your tank. And he said, okay. Now, it cost me almost $50 to fill his tank. But he was a very intelligent guy. We had a nice conversation. But the one thing that bothered me was he wouldn't look at me. He had so much shame. Why? Why did he have shame for asking for help? Why are we such a cold, rotten society? We're so greedy and selfish that this poor man needed help and he had to feel ashamed asking for it. I think that is ultimately horrible. I don't have a lot, and right now I don't have a car and I'm not working. I can work a few hours because my great friend Ed lets me use his truck, so I'm able to keep my head above water. And I'm so thankful for that. And I have my RV, I have a roof over my head, I have food in my stomach, and I have clothes on my back, and that's all that matters. And the truth is, I don't understand why we treat them like they need to be ashamed, because they shouldn't. They're in a tough situation. We don't know how they got there or why they got there. But it's our obligation as a fellow human being to open our hearts and say, hey, here, I have something that I can give to you. And the truth was, I really didn't have that $50 to give him for the gas. But I knew that I was going out to work for the day, and I knew I got food at home. I got a place to go to. I got gas in my car, and I'm going to make money today. So, here you go. And that was pretty much my last $50 in the account. But it didn't matter, because the truth was, I was going to make more. And I went through my day, and it was a great day. But it really sat on my heart horribly that this poor man had such shame. And he wouldn't even look at me. But we had a magnificent conversation about kindness, and the man was intelligent. And there's been several homeless people that I've given money to, or I've brought food to, or whatever else, that were on the street corner begging for money, and they're intelligent. They're not all derelicts like you want to believe. They're just on hard times. Some of them are so ashamed that they don't want to go see their families this way. They're totally ashamed. And if you give them $5 or $10, that's going to buy them a meal. That's not going to give them a shower and get cleaned up so they can at least go home to their families and not feel ashamed. I think they stay stuck because our society has them feeling that they need to be ashamed. Why? Hard times fall on everybody. We as human beings need to open our hearts and help the people that need the help. If we have it, we should feel obligated to share it, not hoard it and keep it to ourselves. I can tell you that throughout my life, I've had money and I've not had money. I've been up and down. I'm an expert at starting over from scratch. I've done it so many times that I have total self-confidence in myself that no matter what comes at me, I can handle it. The problem is I look at all these other people, and shame can really, really drag you down. And there have been times where I've been totally broke and thinking, oh my God, how am I going to get through? And something comes through. A friend, a family, a stranger, somebody comes through with something. And the shame that I feel prior to it, and being in the positions that I'm in, that I've been in, you don't want to tell your family and friends. You're ashamed of it because you don't want to look like a loser. Why do we make it out to be a loser? Why do we create it to be shame? It shouldn't be. We should be helping each other when the time needs to be. That's what a good, decent human being does. If you have something and you see somebody less fortunate, it's your obligation as a human being to help lift them up. We should be lifting each other up, not pushing them farther down. So I'm going to give you a challenge. You got a few bucks in your pocket. You see a homeless person, give them some money. If you're not okay with giving them your money because, well, You have it in your head that, oh my God, they're going to go get drugs and they're going to go to get alcohol. That's none of your business. It's none of your business what they do with it. Is it anybody's business what you do with your money? No. Then why should it be anybody's business what they do with the money? It's not on you. You did the good, human, decent thing. That's all that matters. And that's what you have to live with. What they do with that money is what they have to live with. It's just the way it is. It sucks, but it's just the way it is. But there's a lot of homeless people out there that aren't addicts, that need the help. And if we all shut off because some of the addicts and everything else, we're hurting the ones that we could be helping. And I think if everybody did this, we wouldn't see it as bad as it is out there right now. So, your challenge is, if you have some bucks and you see a homeless person, share. Give from your heart. It'll make you feel good. And you know you did a good deed. You were being a good, decent human being. So your challenge is to go out and be a good, decent human being. No videoing, no accolades of anything else. If you feel the need that you want to share, please feel free to share in the comments or send me a message, because I would love to hear how many people are doing this challenge and enjoying every minute of it, because I give from my heart. It makes me feel good to know that I gave to somebody that needed it. Whether I have the money or not, that money always goes to somebody who has less than me, because they're just possessions. I can't take any of this with me when I die. And I don't want to leave a ton of possessions that my family, my children have to clean up after, because I've spent 35 years saving it all up in a house. For what? Because now not only do they have to mourn my loss and get through the funeral and try to get back to their life or some semblance of normalcy, which I don't know that it ever can go back to that, but they now have to deal with all this crap that I've saved up in storage units and I've filled my big old house with. And I just don't think it's fair that we leave all of that for our living family and friends to deal with, which is why I embrace the minimalist lifestyle. But if I have it and somebody is in a position that needs it more than I do, I don't hesitate. I don't hesitate at all. And I will share one story with you. So I don't know if they have this all over the rest of the country, but out here in Phoenix, my youngest son, Devin, he's very calm and mellow. He's pretty laid back, and he's excellent at he's like a dog when it comes to knowing good and bad people like that. I don't know how, but it's what he has. He's been like that since he was little. And he was working at a Circle K. And we were going, I took him and his ex-girlfriend, it was his girlfriend at the time, to the grocery store, because they didn't have a car, and they didn't have license yet. They were working on it. And I got out of the Jeep, and there was this family, mom and a couple of kids, and a dad was over by a car. And they said, "Excuse me, ma'am, do you have any?" And I went to turn around, and all of a sudden, my youngest son is cussing and swearing these people out, just chasing them away. And I was like, he never acts like that. So I turned around and I'm like, "Devin, what's wrong?" He goes, "No, Mom, they are gypsies. They don't work. They go around begging people for money because they don't want to have to take care of themselves." He goes, "You have a kind heart and you give to anybody that asks." He goes, "You're not giving to them because they're not needing of it. They're wanting and being selfish." And I was like, "Oh, okay, thank you." So the truth is, it's not up to you what they do with it. But it is up to you to take care of your fellow human beings. If we all did this more, the greed and the selfishness in this country and this world would change. And it takes one person to start it. And so your challenge is, be one of those people. Alright, thanks guys. Bye, love ya.